In the deepest corner of the enchanted forest, where even sunlight seemed to hesitate before entering, there stood an ancient tree unlike any other. Its roots stretched wide across the earth like giant wooden rivers, and its branches rose so high they seemed to pierce the clouds. The bark was scarred with lines that looked older than the mountains themselves, and the wind that passed through its leaves carried whispers of forgotten voices. Travelers often passed this place without realizing they were standing before a guardian of secrets. Yet on one fateful day, two unlikely friends arrived: Filo the clever fox and Zeko the brave zebra. Filo's sharp eyes caught the faintest shimmer in the tree's bark, glowing as if the tree had a heartbeat. Zeko's hooves trembled on the ground as he felt the earth stir beneath him. The forest seemed to hold its breath in that moment, and both friends knew they had discovered something extraordinary. It was no ordinary tree, it was a doorway to a world unseen. With a groan like thunder, the roots of the tree shifted, pulling apart to reveal a spiraling passage beneath the ground. The earth quaked as dust and leaves scattered through the air, and a strange light shimmered from below. Filo, always quick to leap toward adventure, was the first to step inside, his tail flicking with excitement. Zeko hesitated for a moment, his cautious heart warning him of danger, but his loyalty to his friend pulled him forward. Together, they descended into the mysterious passage, their footsteps echoing against walls coated with glowing moss. The deeper they went, the cooler the air became, filled with scents of damp stone and ancient wood. Strange vines slithered along the tunnel walls, curling away as if alive, and fireflies floated lazily through the air like wandering stars. The tunnel bent and twisted, as though it were guiding them towards something hidden at its core. Neither Filo nor Zeko knew what awaited them, but both felt that their lives were about to change forever. At last, the passage opened into a cavern so vast it seemed to have no end. The ceiling glittered with crystals like a night sky frozen underground, while the floor shimmered with reflections of pale blue light. At the cavern's center stood a colossal crystal, glowing and pulsing like the beating heart of a giant. The moment their eyes met its light, they felt waves of energy ripple through them, stirring their spirits with equal parts wonder and fear. But the cavern was not silent. Faint whispers circled through the air, voices of those who had once entered this place long ago. Some spoke of treasure, some of power, and some of failure. It became clear that this place was not simply a discovery, it was a test, and no adventurer who had come before had ever returned. Filo's fur bristled with anticipation, while Zeko stood tall, determined not to falter. The crystal waited, glowing brighter as if calling to them, daring them to approach. But before they could take another step, the shadows moved. From the walls of the cavern emerged guardians of stone, their enormous forms carved with ancient runes that glowed faintly with fire. Their eyes burned like embers, and their steps shook the ground like falling boulders. Each movement they made sounded like grinding mountains, heavy and unstoppable. Filo darted forward, his nimble body weaving between the guardian's strikes, his speed the only thing keeping him safe. Zeko, larger and stronger, planted his hooves firmly and charged, his strength echoing like thunder in the cavern. The two friends worked as one, complementing each other's skills, but the guardians kept coming, one after another, endless in number. The cavern roared with the clash of stone against courage, and for a moment, it seemed the guardians would overwhelm them. Yet even in the chaos, the heart of the old tree glowed brighter, as if watching and judging. Suddenly, the ground cracked beneath their feet, splitting the cavern into two separate paths. Filo fell into a twisting maze of living vines that shifted with every step, while Zeko was dragged into a canyon of shadows where every sound echoed back in confusing ways. They had been separated, each now forced to face their own trial. Filo, quick but often reckless, had to use his wits to navigate the living maze, where every wrong turn led him back to the start. The vines coiled and shifted like serpents, blocking his path, but he used his clever mind to outsmart them, spotting patterns and hidden openings that guided him forward. Meanwhile, Zeko's canyon was filled with false echoes, voices mimicking his own, trying to lead him astray. His test was one of courage, to trust his heart rather than his ears. Step by step, he resisted the pull of the illusions, walking steadily until he finally found light at the end of the shadows. After what felt like hours, both friends emerged from their trials, battered but stronger than before. They reunited at the base of the crystal, their eyes filled with determination and relief. Around them, the guardians of stone stood silently, watching but no longer advancing. It was as though the cavern itself had paused, waiting for what would happen next. Filo and Zeko approached the glowing crystal together, side by side, their hearts steady. As they placed their paws and hooves upon its surface, a burst of radiant light filled the cavern, brighter than the sun. The guardians froze, then slowly lowered their heads, bowing before the two adventurers. The test was complete, and the choice had been made. The old tree had recognized their unity, their bravery, and their loyalty. The crystal's energy surged into them, flowing through their bodies like rivers of lightning. Filo felt the sharpness of the wind in his veins, while Zeko felt the steady strength of the earth beneath his hooves. Together, they had been given a gift, the power to call upon the forest itself whenever darkness threatened. Their bond had been sealed not just by friendship, but by destiny. As the last rays of light from the crystal faded, the cavern grew still and quiet, the guardians slowly sinking back into the shadows. The trials had ended, and the forest had chosen its protectors. Filo and Zeko stood side by side, forever changed by the experience. When they returned to the surface, the forest was no longer the same. The trees seemed to sway with recognition, the rivers sparkled as though filled with laughter, and the wind brushed against them gently, guiding their steps. Birds sang in tones they had never heard before, as though celebrating the arrival of new guardians. The world around them seemed alive in a way they had never noticed until now. It was as if every branch, every stone, and every breeze acknowledged their new role. They were no longer ordinary travelers wandering the world. They had become part of the forest itself, bound to its magic and entrusted with its secrets. The old tree stood as tall and silent as before, but now it carried a new glow within its heart. It had not only tested Filo and Zeko, it had trusted them with its eternal secret. From that day forward, they were no longer wanderers chasing adventure for its own sake. They were protectors, chosen to defend the forest against whatever darkness might one day rise. Yet their story was not ending here. In truth, it was only just beginning. Every step they took from that moment carried the weight of destiny, and every path led to new mysteries. With the forest at their side and the old tree watching over them, Filo and Zeko's journey stretched far beyond the horizon, toward adventures waiting to be told. And so the legend began. The tale of a fox and a zebra, bound not just by friendship, but by courage, loyalty, and the magic of a living forest. Their names would be whispered among the trees, carried by rivers, and sung by the wind. Wherever they traveled, the forest would walk with them, its strength flowing through their hearts. Though danger still lingered in unseen corners of the world, the guardianship of Filo and Zeko meant the forest would never stand alone. The old tree had awakened, and with it, a new era of adventure had begun.